Hello once again, class, and welcome to another mock lecture. Today we're going to be tackling weighted averages. So let's pretend that we're a student in some class and we turn in 7 different assignments. We can name them assignment 1, assignment 2, assignment 3, right, so on and so forth. And let's say that for the first assignment you score a 97%, the second assignment you score an 83%, the third assignment you score an 80%, the fourth assignment you score a 90%, the fifth assignment you score a 70%, the sixth assignment you score a 57%, and the seventh assignment you score an 85%. If we wanted to find an average score on all of these assignments, like what was your average score on the assignments, of course you're just finding an average. And if you don't remember, an average is you add up all of the scores in total, and then you divide that score, that total score, by the number of assignments that there were. In this case, there's 7. So adding them all up gives us 562. You divide by 7, and so we have an average score of 80.29%. Okay, that's a normal average. But that's not typically how classes work, especially at the college level. Usually on any syllabus that you're given, you have some kind of a section that goes over an overall grade breakdown. And here I've got a pretty simple one in that there's only 3 categories, but oftentimes there's more like 5 or 6 categories. But the idea is going to be the same. There's just more categories to consider when you're calculating an overall grade. But let's say that in this class, homework is worth 65%, the midterm is worth 15%, and the final exam is worth 20% of your overall grade. So these are percentages of your overall grade, which means we want them to add up to 100% so that 100% of your grade is allocated, right, to the 3 main categories that we have. And then the formula to find what the weighted average is it's the percent weight of your grade multiplied by that specific category's average score. So you'll see that I have 0.65 because that's 65% as a decimal, multiplied by H, where I'm calling H kind of your average homework score. We're going to add that to 0.15 times your midterm score, because the midterm is worth 15%, and then add that to 0.2 times whatever you get on the final, because the final is 20% of your overall grade. And again, 0.65 plus 0.15 plus 0.2 is 1, right? So it's all of your grade is allocated. All 100% of your grade is allocated. So again, H is the average homework score, which we are going to have to calculate if there's more than one homework that we need to find the average for. Midterm is your midterm score, and final is your final score, for which there's typically only one of each in any given college class. Some of them have more than one midterm. I actually used to do that in my classes, but now there's just one midterm and one final. So let's pretend that of these 7 assignments, the first 5 of them are just homework assignments. So I've labeled them H1, H2, H3, H4, H5. The 6th assignment, let's say that was the midterm, and the last assignment, let's say that was the final. Now if I want to calculate what the overall grade in the class was at this point, we can't use a normal average because they're all weighted differently. We have to use the weighted averages formula that I just showed you guys. So this thing, we can actually, and I also, by the way, I changed the name of weighted average to overall grade because that's what it is in this case. We can plug in the midterm and the final already because there's nothing to average there. There was only one midterm and it's 15% of your grade. There's only one final and it's 20% of your grade, so we'll go ahead and stick those numbers in here. But to calculate H, we actually have to find what the average homework score is. Right, and it's not that thing that we calculated at the beginning because that included the midterm and the final in the overall average. So here we just need to add up these 5 homework scores and then divide that total by 5, and I got 84 when I did that. So I'm going to stick 84 right in here, and then now we can actually calculate what this is. So on a calculator, I would type in 0.65 times 84, record what that is, 0.15 times 57, record what that is, and then 0.2 times 85, figure out what that is, and then I'd add those things together. And when I did that, I got 80.15. Now you might be thinking, 80.15%, that's really not that far off of the 80.28% or whatever we got when we calculated a normal average. So this isn't actually the best example. I did all this work writing these slides only to find out at the very end, I didn't select very good numbers to show that weighted averages can actually change a normal average quite significantly. So I'm going to change stuff around just to show you that that weighted averages can be very different than what a normal average might be. So what I did is I reallocated what was what in our sample of assignments here. So the first 4 assignments are still homework assignments, but then I changed the last assignment to the 5th homework assignment. I changed the 5th assignment to the midterm and the 6th assignment to the final. So basically I just jumbled stuff up just to show you how this, let's pretend like these are the scores that we got. The normal average is still the same, right? So we're still comparing against that 80.28 or whatever percent that it was. So now I'm going to go ahead and plug this stuff in, doing the exact same thing I did before. The midterm is now 70, the final was now 57, and then the scores that I had to use for homework were 97, 83, 80, 90, and then 85, and I divided that by 5 still. This time I got 87 for the homework average. And when you calculate all that stuff, you get 78.45%, which is pretty significantly different than the 80 point whatever. It's half a letter grade lower, right, in that case, which stands to reason because now our final exam is not great, right? It's 57%. So just to really make sure that this whole weighted average thing makes sense, notice that these are maximum contributions to a grade. So like homework can at maximum only give you 65% of your total grade. You can't get above that. I guess unless your professor does like extra credit or something like that. But those are the maximum contributions that you can earn from any given category, which means that, like, let's say if you average 50% on homework, then you're only earning 50% of the 65% that homework contributes to your overall grade, which means that, and to do that calculation, if you do 0.65 times 50, you'd get 32.5%. So of your overall grade, where you could earn up to 65% of it, you're only getting 32.5 percentage points from the homework category. So every single category is the maximum contribution, and if you're not getting 100% on every single category, then it stands to reason that your overall grade is earning less than these specific amounts. Okay, so another example is if you decide not to take the final for whatever reason, then that 20% you just lose out on. So the highest grade that you could get would be an 80%, but that's assuming that you get 100% on all of your homework assignments and 100% on the midterm. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Let's do an example. So example 1, suppose Ruby is taking a class where her final grade is determined by homework, which we'll say is 20% of overall grade, quizzes, which is 25%, a midterm, which is also 25%, and then a final exam, which is 30%. And you'll notice that I've allocated all 100% of the grade in those 4 categories. 25 and 25, that's 50%, and then 20 and 30, that's 50%. So okay, 100% of it's there. She has completed everything in the class except for the final and wants to know what is the highest grade that she could earn, basically. So we're going to use this. We're going to use this formula, the final grade. Notice that I'm using 0.2 times the average homework because homework scores are 20% of overall grade. 0.25 for quizzes because they're 25%. 0.25 for the midterm. And you'll notice I actually already filled out that particular calculation here because we know what the midterm score is. There's only one of them. There's nothing to average. But then the question becomes, well, what do we put in for the final? Well, if we're trying to calculate what the highest grade is, then we should put in 100, right? So that's what I'm going to do. So the only thing that we need to do to calculate what the highest grade she could get is plug in something for average homework and something for average quizzes, for which we can calculate those things, right? We know all the scores, so we just have to do 2 separate calculations and plug them into their respective parts so that we can get our answer. Okay, so we'll start with homework scores. I added all the percents together to get 358. There's only 4 homework scores, so I divided by 4. So, okay, the average homework score is 89.5, and I'm going to plug that in to where the average homework score should go, which is being multiplied by 0.2, because homework is 20% of the grade. We do the same thing for quizzes. I added all these quizzes together to get 366. There's 5 of them, so I divided this by 5 this time, and I got 73.2. So the average quiz would be 73.2 there. At this point, we have all the information that we need, so I just went ahead and calculated all this. 0.2 times 89.5 is 17.9. The second part gave me 18.3. The third part gave me 21.5. And we're assuming that we get 100% on the final, so we'll add 30. And actually, I like this view because it's showing you which category is affecting your grade the most, right? The thing with the highest weight here and contributing the most points, because we're assuming we get 100 points on it, is actually the final. The next biggest contributing factor is the midterm. And then the next biggest contributing factor is the quizzes. And then the next biggest contributing factor, or the last one, is your homework. But I like it because you can see how this, and I'll go to the next slide, how this 87.3% is comprised of. 30 of it is straight up from the final. That's a huge part of this 87.3. 21.5 of it came from the midterm. 18.3 of it came from quizzes, and 17.9 came from homework. Okay, but that's the highest grade that Ruby can earn in this class. Now, of course, if she earns like a 62% on it, then we just plug in 62 to the formula. Notice that the only number that changes, this went from 30 down to 18.6 because of the maximum 30%, right, of the maximum 30 score points that you could get from the midterm. You're only earning 18.6 of it because you're only earning 62% of the 30 points. So Ruby would end up with a 76.3 in that case. Now, I'm calling this example 2, even though I'm using the same scenario, because the thing that I'm changing here is, let's say that she's, again, completed everything except the final, but she wants to know what her current grade in the class is. So I actually am not going to put anything in for this. In fact, I'm going to completely remove it, just altogether, because it's not going to be part of what we're about to do here. Now, the thing is, by removing this 30% of your overall grade, what's left is only the stuff that is contributing for your grade. So in what we've calculated, if I go back to here, what we're calculating here is what of the currently accrued stuff have we earned in totality. So if you then divide that by the total available maximum percentage that you could have, then that's going to tell you what your current grade in the class is. So the numerator actually didn't change from what we had before. Like, we already knew these numbers. Nothing's changing there. But now I'm going to divide by 0.7 because only 70% of the class is completed, right? Stuff from homework, stuff from quizzes, and then the midterm. 30% of your grade is still unknown. So it can't really play a role in the current grade calculation. It hasn't happened yet. So what we do is we say, okay, well, we've done 70% of the stuff. Of the 70%, this is how many points that Ruby has earned so far. And then when you just divide it by the maximum available points that there are, which is 70%, or 0.7 as a decimal. And if you do that, you get currently, like if Ruby were to go look at her current grade, she'd see that she has a B-, 82.43%. She could earn up to an 87. Right now she's got an 82.43. And the final is really going to determine whether her grade improves or dips below that percentage. So that's actually it for this one. Just talking about weighted averages in the context of calculating your grade in a class. So I hope that was helpful. If you guys have any questions, please leave a comment below or shoot me an email. Thanks a ton for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.